Here's your opportunity to advertise your business. Monday Night Politics will reach voters statewide. Don't miss the opportunity to get your business seen across the state of Texas. To advertise and for more details, contact Molly Finch Belt, publisher and CEO of the Dallas Examiner, by phone or by email. We want to thank our advertisers, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok followers, sponsors, and subscribers for your support during Monday Night Politics Meet the Candidates. Monday Night Politics Meet the Candidates is a forum for candidates for elected office presented by the Dallas Examiner. This forum allows candidates to list their qualifications and gives them the opportunity to address issues facing Texas voters. Now that the Texas primaries and runoff elections have been held, the Dallas Examiner has invited Democratic and Republican candidates to a forum. For details on forum dates and times, visit dallasexaminer.com or find us on Facebook, Instagram, or TikTok. To advertise or become a corporate sponsor, contact Molly Finch Belt, publisher and CEO of the Dallas Examiner, by phone or by email.
Good evening and welcome to Monday Night Politics Meet the Candidates, presented by the Dallas Examiner. The Dallas Examiner has presented Monday Night Politics Meet the Candidates for over 12 consecutive years before major elections. Monday Night Politics Meet the Candidates is a series of forums, not debates, but forums designed to inform the community of the qualifications, experiences, and platforms of candidates for elected office. Our sponsors are nonprofit organizations. You can view the forums on www.dallasexaminer.com and Facebook Live. Also, you can view it on the Dallas Examiner app. Tonight, for this series of forums, our moderator is Charles O'Neill. Charles is president of the Texas Association of African American Chambers of Commerce. He was the first editor of the Dallas Examiner and was here when my father started the paper 37 years ago. Again, I want to thank you for attending Monday Night Politics and thank you for your support.
Politics brought to you by the Dallas Examiner. As Ms. Belt just told you, I want to, before I get started in our questioning tonight, I want to let you know who some of the sponsors that have joined with the Dallas Examiner in ensuring that the readers and viewers of forums like this are among the most informed or the best informed in the electorate here in North Texas. So joining with the Dallas Examiner for Monday Night Politics are the African American Museum, the NAACP Dallas Chapter, Our Vote is Our Voice, the DFW Metro branch of NAACP, the Dallas Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta, the Metropolitan Dallas Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta, Alpha Sigma Lambda Chapter of Alpha Phi Alpha, Iota Phi Theta Fraternity Incorporated, the Dallas Alumni Chapter of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity, the Dallas Association of Realtors, Dallas Panhellenic Council, the Theta Alpha Chapter of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity, the Commish Radio Show, St. Luke Political Action Committee, Omicron Mu Omega Chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority, the North Texas Cluster of the Links, the Dallas-Fort Worth Urban League of Young Professionals, and the Dallas Black Chamber of Commerce. Again, welcome. We have to you, for your viewing pleasure and for your information tonight, two candidates for State Board of Education District 13. We have the incumbent, Ms. Aisha Davis, and her challenger, Ms. Catherine Monette. Right? There's no question that education rises to the top of all concerns, particularly in the African American community, because we've learned that education is a key, right? And it works in all communities, but clearly has been the on-ramp for success in our community. Ms. Davis, can you tell us something about, as the incumbent, can you tell us, one, what the State Board of Education does, and what your experience has been in your first term?
So, thank you. So the State Board of Education, we have three main duties. One is we manage the permanent school fund, which is about $43 billion used to fund Texas public schools for both today and tomorrow. We also do things like we approve innovative courses, we approve any changes to teacher certifications and things like that. And we also decide on curriculum. We decide on the standards that students have to know to graduate from Texas public schools. And those are the three main categories of main responsibilities that we have. But we also have a responsibility to talk to our administrators and our teachers and our families to make sure that education is flowing in a positive direction for our students across Texas. And I will say, in my first term, some of my biggest successes, as soon as I was elected, I really wanted to make sure that African American Studies was a statewide course available. And so we did pilot that course here in Dallas, and we were successful in passing it in 2020. We were able to also create an internship with the help of Senator West for underrepresented students to study how to be involved in finance, so that when that $43 billion permanent school fund needs some contractual opportunities, we have some folks, some candidates of color, and some women-owned businesses that are able to get those contracts. So those are some things I've been proud to do in my very first term.
Very good. So, Ms. Manette, you're the challenger.
Yes.
And what is it about the performance, if you will, of the State Board of Education that spurred your decision to run?
Well, I've been teaching fourth grade girls at my church, and I also tutor math and help with other homework in an after-school program at a charter school. And so there is where I have seen some lowering of standards where they're not even learning their multiplication tables. And they're really struggling with reading, because what I've learned is we no longer teach phonics, and you can only memorize so many words. And I discovered the word like, they're using as a sight word when that has rules. And if you can go by rules, then we can increase our reading. And if they're learning their multiplication, just even multiplication tables, so that they can do more math. Because eventually they're going to need algebra, geometry, calculus, and physics, so that they can be successful later after high school.
So you're essentially saying that the State Board of Education needs to refocus on delivering education rather than some of the political maelstrom
Yes.
that has been going
We're
on.
spending too much political and not enough on our core subjects.
Clearly that has impacted. I noticed on some of your campaign material as well that homeschooling and charter schools are your proponents of those for public education?
I think they're a great added value for our public schools. Yes, public schools are needed, but I like that the parents have options for also charter schools, private schools, or homeschool, because I think that creates a better competition, and I think that brings up public schools as well.
Ms. Davis, what do you think? Again, my parents, my mother was a school teacher. My father, when he retired from the military, he became a school teacher. So I'm a big fan of public schools. I may be wrong, but I think that the move toward the charter schools, even public charter schools, is a detraction from the core mission of government to deliver an equal education. What has been your experience?
From my perspective, because we do approve new charter applicants every year, the majority of charter applicants do try to go into Black communities, majority brown communities, and I've seen education plans that aren't the best for our students. I've seen education plans where there weren't counselors available, where there would be no libraries available, where if a student was disciplined twice, they would miss 20 days of recess, and that's a second grader. I've seen charter schools try to open for a ninth grade center and didn't even know what courses ninth graders take. And if these are the schools that are going to open in Black communities and brown communities, you need to have all the resources to make sure that students can improve their outcomes, at least those equitable to the ISD that's in that same community. And what I've also found is a lot of folks who say they're very, very for charter schools on the other end of the spectrum, they don't put their own kids in the charter schools. And so that to me has always been questionable. And I've had conversations about that. And there are some areas where folks do encourage students of color to go to the charter schools so that the other students can go to the ISDs where most of the resources actually are. So until we start to make sure that that whole process is equitable, I don't believe that we need to just allow all of these charter schools to burst around Texas, especially when they're targeting our schools with Black and brown kids.
And the size of the State Board of Education is, total number of members is?
15.
And 2 African Americans?
Yes.
Ms. Monette, the state of Texas has the largest black population among the 50 states. Just recently, this week, they announced, the demographic announcement was that Hispanic population has reached a little over 40%. So the ethnic minority population of the state of Texas is 60%. It's not reflected at the State Board of Education. How would you ensure, with your election, that would be one less African American focused at our school board, how would you ensure that the needs of this dynamic, growing, and diverse student population, how would you address that?
I think if we quit concentrating on color of your skin and more on character, I think we teach the children to respect each other regardless of their differences. If we're treating each other with respect and integrity, and we're wanting to concentrate on character, and if we're not, it's like, oh, we're going to teach you one way and teach you another way. No, let's bring the bar up and teach everybody up here. Let's do what we can to bring the bar up for everybody. But if we're teaching each other respect for each other, and it's like, well, how can I help you? And we're trying to help each other, then I think then it doesn't matter.
No, I appreciate that. That's a lofty aspiration, but that's not worked so well for us to this point. And I don't think that it's any historical, but there's historical evidence that the delivery of the educational product has been influenced by considerations of race. We have to address that. We have to acknowledge that in order to unravel, I believe, what we've experienced as, I know I grew up with books that were 2 or 3 years old, right, in classrooms. Well, that was not a decision that was made by my parents, or no, was it reflected by the representation that we did not have at the State Board of Education. And so, again, as I started earlier, education is a critical conversation in the black community. Without representation that assures that our perspectives are heard, I'm not certain that we will get the outcomes, character-based outcomes that you're describing. So I would say again to you, let's drill down a little further. How would you address the other members of the Board of Education who don't share your goals, don't share your perspective?
I think that's what we need to do, though. And I do understand, because I've heard the stories, because like my mother grew up in Greenville, where it used to have the sign.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the whitest people.
Yeah.
And so she was thirsty, and there's a fountain. One of them's black and one of them's white. She didn't know which one she needed to go to. And so she went to the white fountain. She had some old white man grab her by the hair and say, you need to be drinking out of the black fountain. So there wasn't as many mix then. There's a whole lot of mix now. And I think if we just bring the bar up, and we need to be thinking, because then you're thinking, well, this child is half and half, and we've got so many mix, and now you're thinking, well, you need to identify with this one or that one. You're disassociating families, because many families are mixed, just like mine. And so that makes it difficult. And so we need to bring everybody together. The past is the past. Let's move forward. Let's include everybody, and let's bring the bar up for everybody.
I don't disagree that is a lofty aspiration. Ms. Davis, what has been your experience in attempting to get the rest of the State Board of Education to dwell on character?
I do agree with my opponent. We do need to include everybody. And our curriculum, our standards does need to be inclusive. Because we talk about the entire state of Texas, but when we talk about District 13 in particular, we're talking about a large concentration of students of color. And we know our students learn best when they're engaged, when they have curriculum standards, when they have resources that are reflective, when they can really, really get into whatever it is they're studying. That's how you build success in education. So if you're not being more cognizant to make sure that you have materials that are reflective of that diverse student population, and if you're not making sure that you fully address it, and you make sure that students have those opportunities to know that they are great, that they have ancestors that have made great contributions to this country. And even though we're not where we need to be at all, they do need to understand the past so that we don't make those same mistakes in the future. And I think that a part of that is making sure we do have inclusive standards. And in my experience, I've seen whenever there is an attempt to make sure that that reflection truly occurs, we do have a lot of pushback because there is a lot of people who say, oh no, we shouldn't look at color, even though we have a majority of students of color here in Texas that aren't well represented in our standards. We are currently looking at our social studies review. And for there to be such a large population of people of color in Texas, that's not what's represented in our standards. Our students don't learn about very many Black or brown figures, historical figures, people that really could influence and inspire them. And so that's what we were trying to do with our social studies review. We've been attacked very harshly, so much so that it's been pushed off to 2025, which is very unfortunate because now that means our students have to learn the very same thing over and over again, which doesn't have the standards that should have, that we were attempting to. So I think it's unfortunate to have the mentality, let's just talk to students and build character. I think by building character and by building respect, you have to talk about all these different cultures and talk about how they all contribute to who we are.
You mentioned the, ongoing, discussion, it's an argument over the social studies curriculum. We also noted that this past legislative session, we think I certainly do, this is subjective, I think the Texas legislature was pretty heavy-handed in directing what curriculum would look like. What did you think about some of the things that came out of this past legislative session and what we might expect in January?
I think there was too much emphasis on one area, that of the victim oppressor. I think there's too much emphasis on that. And how can we have kids and ourselves move forward if that's our emphasis? Because even Abraham was complaining to God that all his inheritance was going to go to his slaves' children. So, it's not an America thing. And America was one of the first ones to stop it. And so we need to concentrate. Yes, we need to teach the past. The past happened. We need to learn the past because you can't move forward because you'll just repeat it again. So we need to learn the past, and we need to learn all of it. And yes, there needs to be more Black, Hispanic, and Indian people that we learn about. So I totally agree with that. But not so much emphasis put where it creates more division. We want to be more inclusive of everybody, and I treat you the same as you need to be treated with anybody else because you have a plan and a purpose for your life. Everybody, all these kids have a plan and a purpose, and we treat each other with respect and bring each other up. That's, and so I think you can't put too much emphasis on one area because I think that creates division and not let's move forward. Because we've made some great strides. Let's see where we're going. How far can we go? Let's move the bar up. Let's keep going.
The African term Sankofa means to go back and get that which you've left behind. Our students, while they are shaping their aspirations, can't be fully certain of themselves if they don't know what that experience is. And I think part of the hamstring for current education is that it has not been comprehensive, that it has not been truthful. And so if we're committed to this future that you envision or that you articulate, it must reflect what they would call now a paradigm shift in the way education product is delivered. And I think that is what you had said earlier, Ms. Davis. If you would kind of expand on Again, my characterization, the heavy-handedness of the legislature in trying to tailor what curriculum outcomes are and how it was addressed at the State Board of Education.
Senate Bill 3 directly came about because it was an attempt to discredit the 1619 project. There was a lot of emphasis on making sure that more folks were included in history, that some of the ideas from the 1619 project centered America around slavery and enslavement, and it put into the timeline when enslaved folks came over here, because some of our students didn't even know that you had enslaved boats came before the Pilgrims. Mm-hmm. Because right now in Texas, there is no chronological timeline. Right. So that part is left out. Right. So Senate Bill 3, it was an attack on public schools in so many ways, and it's caused so much chaos. Mm-hmm. We actually were able to hear from the author of that. He testified before the state board, where I was able to address the chaos he's caused in public schools. Mm-hmm. Now, whatever his intent was, now you have teachers that are afraid to teach truth. You have teachers who think they have to teach things like the good parts of the Holocaust and the good parts of slavery. You have teachers who are quitting because they're put in a position to have to do these and make these decisions. You have school board meetings who are being disrupted by people who don't understand what critical race theory really is. So it has caused disruption in our public education. And I can't wait for it to go away, because this came about recently. Remember, we adopted African American Studies in 2020 unanimously without any discussion of any of this. And now here we are, 2022, and it's taken over the entire discussion of everything in public education. So I'm ready to get back to the point where we're talking about doing what's best for kids and for teachers, for our diverse kids and our diverse teachers, and making sure they all have the tools to be successful.
You know, I could go, oh boy, Ms. Belt might have mentioned that I'd love to write editorials, so I would just take off on this 1836 project, right? But we're going to leave that. Talk to us about this, again, my terminology, insurgency in the kind of candidates being elected to local boards of education, and how that impacts, or how that will how will those changes in approach to education at the local level impact decision-making at the State Board of Education level? And we'll start with you, Ms. Monette.
Your local school board? Mm-hmm. I think the local school board is very important, and how that's where parents can really take the opportunity to get involved and talk to their school board members for their schools. Mm-hmm. What was on?
Well, I was just asking, clearly it seems to be a groundswell of attempt to change the way, the makeup and the policy kind of direction that local school boards are approaching, again, their product, their educational outcomes. What is your experience, Ms. Davis?
School boards are becoming radicalized because people are dumping money behind candidates who say they're going to do things like erase all the CRT in schools that doesn't even exist anyway. Mm-hmm. So you have some school boards, that's why all of these textbooks are now being taken away from libraries, why a lot of opportunities to learn or read about diversity is being taken away. But that's also happening at the state board. Two of my, and they're not even really moderate colleagues, lost their seats to very radical people. Actually, one person who was actually at the insurrection in DC won a Republican primary down in the South Houston area. So even our board is going through the exact same thing. So what I've encouraged parents to do is get involved. Just like they're organizing to go and cause chaos, organize to go and make sure that our teachers and our students are protected. But that is happening especially across school districts in North Texas.
Well, there you have it. That's a really quick snapshot on the candidates for the State Board of Education, District 13. We hope that you will listen to these candidates, what they've said tonight. We hope that you will research them and make a wise decision for your vote in November. I'll take closing statements, 2 minutes from each candidate. We'll start with you, Ms. Monette.
So some of the books that are being taken out would be considered porn. And we don't need that kind of sex education in our schools, and it shouldn't be even taught below 6th grade. And those are a lot of the books that the parents and teachers are objecting to. And because if they were anywhere else, it would be considered grooming, and it's still considered grooming, I think, in elementary school. These are the books that need to be removed. And that's where parents are getting involved because they found out what was going on during COVID. They were like, wait a minute, you're teaching my child what? But it's like I said, if we start teaching with respect, and if we're treating each other equal, guess what? We're going to be equal. And where I live is a minority area. It's always been minority area. And so naturally, most of my friends are minority, but I'm from that background. So if we're treating with mutual respect, we're teaching character, to be a good character, to be a good citizen, to help others. And we bring the bar up, quit spending so much time on that and on our core values. We need math and reading, because if they can't do math and reading, and like I said, it's less than 50% in Dallas County that are graduating proficient. So we need to be working on those core values and not so much on the social, emotional, and political agendas. That's what we need to be working toward.
Very good. Thank you. Ms. Davis?
I do want to say there are three main categories of books that are being banned. Books about LGBTQ+, which is being called porn, but they're about LGBTQ+ kids. Books about Black Lives Matter, and books about women's reproductive health. Those are the three categories of books that are being banned, and I don't think that they should be. I think that kids should have access to those books. Now, I do think there's a level of appropriateness that we definitely do need to judge, but I think we have fantastic librarians all around Texas in our public schools that are very, very well trained to know what books are appropriate for our students. So again, I think it's very, very sad that people are pulling books from kids and taking those resources away from them. That's one of the reasons why I'm running for re-election. When I ran for this in 2018, I was a teacher. I taught secondary science, and I've always wanted opportunities for students to just be able to grow and do whatever it is that they imagine. And I see so many opportunities to improve education at a state level, but we're not there yet. And I want to continue fighting for students like I've had for the last couple of years. And we have some tough times coming before the State Board of Education. We have to finish our social studies adoption. We have to get the resources that come along with that. We know last time we adopted social studies books, they called slaves migrant workers. So there's a lot of work to do to make sure that our standards are correct, that make sure that they're inclusive, and to make sure that our communities actually have a voice in what we do. As for our charters, I want to make sure that the only ones that are adopted are the ones that have our students' best interests at hand, and they have a good financial plan to take care of that. As for working with the legislature, I want to make sure they know what's exactly going on in our public schools, so when they're writing those laws, they have that intent to bring and build equity, because I don't want things to be equal. I want our students of color to have that opportunity to rise like they've been so far back for so many years. So that's what I want to continue to do on the board, and that's why I've decided to run for re-election.
Thank you so much, Ms. Aisha Davis, the incumbent for State Board of Education District 13, her challenger, Ms. Catherine Monette. Thank you both so much for being with us tonight. We'll be back with you shortly with our next forum with candidates for the Dallas County District Attorney's Office. Thank you.
The State Board of Education Forum is sponsored by Raise Your Hand Texas. Public education is always on the ballot, and the future of Texas is in our public schools. Join us to get engaged in supporting our teachers, students, and schools. Visit us at www.raiseyourhandtexas.org/vote.